just as you are finishing, that could make it all wrong. That's a very real possibility. I guess I have been lucky. Initially, I went into this career feeling very much that my role as an astronomer, as an observer, was just to gather very good data. I just looked upon my role as that of gathering valuable data for the astronomical community, and in most cases it turned out to be more than that. I wouldn't be disappointed if it were only that. But discoveries are always nice. I just discovered something this spring that's enchanting, and I remember how fun it was. With one of the postdocs, a young fellow, I was making a study of galaxies in the Virgo cluster. This is the biggest large cluster near us. Well, what I've learned in looking at these nearby clusters is that, in fact, I have enjoyed very much learning the details of each galaxy. I have almost gotten more interested in just their individual traits because these galaxies are close to us. Well, close to us on a universal scale. This is the first time that I have ever had a large sample of galaxies, all of which were close enough so that I could see lots of little details. And I have found that very strange things are happening near the centers of many of these galaxies. Very rapid rotations, little disks, all kinds of interesting things. I have sort of gotten hung up on these little interesting things. So, having studied and measured them all and trying to decide what to do because it was such a vast quantity of interesting data, I realized that some of them were more interesting than others for all kinds of reasons, which I won't go into. So I decided that I would write up first those that had the most interesting central properties, which really had nothing to do with why I started the program, and I realized that there were 20 or 30 that were just very interesting. And I picked 14. I decided to write a paper on those 14 interesting galaxies. They all have very rapid rotating cores and lots of gas and other things. Well, one of them was unusually interesting. I first took a spectrum of it in 1989 and then another in 1990. So I had two spectra of these objects, and I had probably not measured them until 1990 or 1991. At first, I didn't quite understand why it was so interesting, but it was unlike anything I had ever seen. You know, in a galaxy, or in a spiral or disk galaxy, almost all of the stars are orbiting in a plane around the center. Well, I finally decided that in this galaxy some of the stars were going one way and some of the stars were going the other way. Some were going clockwise and some were going counterclockwise. But I only had two spectra and one wasn't so good, so I would alternately believe it and not believe it. I would think about writing this one up alone, and then I would think that the spectra were not good enough. And then I would show it to my colleagues, and they would believe it, and they could see two lines, or they couldn't. And I would worry about whether the sky was doing something funny. So I decided, because the 1991 applications for using the main telescopes had already passed, that in the spring of 1992 I would go and get another spectrum. But then I had an idea. Because there were some very peculiar things on the spectrum, and I suddenly, months were taken up in trying to understand what I was looking at. I do the thinking in the other room. I sit in front of this very exotic TV screen next to a computer, but it gives me the images of these spectra very carefully, and I can play with them. And I don't know, one day I just decided that I had to understand what this complexity was that I was looking at, and I made sketches on a piece of paper, and suddenly I understood it all. I have no other way of describing it. It was exquisitely clear. I don't know why I hadn't done this 2 years earlier. And then in the spring I went observing, so I asked one of my colleagues here to come observing with me. He and I occasionally do things together. We had 3 nights. On 2 of them we never opened the telescope, and the 3rd night it was a terrible night, but we got a little. We got enough on this galaxy that it sort of confirmed it. But on the other hand, it really didn't matter because, by then, I already knew that everything was right. So that's the story. And it's fun, great fun, to come upon something new. This spring I had to give a talk at Harvard, and of course, I stuck this in. And in fact, it was confirmed 2 days later by astronomers who had spectra of this galaxy but had not analyzed them. This account telescopes years of hard work,